Maria stood at the edge of the airfield, holding a heavy key that felt colder than the morning wind. The old hangar loomed in front of her with bent metal walls and faded paint burned by sun and time. People nearby whispered and laughed because the place looked forgotten and weak. They did not see the way her shoulders stayed straight, or how her eyes stayed calm. She had spent her life standing in places where she was not expected. This was just another place like that. The ground smelled of oil and dry grass and memory. Maria took one slow breath and walked forward. She grew up in a small town where broken things were thrown away without thought. Her father taught her how to listen to engines before he taught her how to speak loud. When he passed, she kept working alone with grease on her hands and silence around her. Customers came because she fixed what others could not. They stayed because she never lied about the work. Still they asked who trained her, or who owned the shop. Maria always answered by finishing the job and handing back the keys. That was how she survived. That was how she learned patience. Thomas Hale had been one of her quiet customers. He never stayed long and never spoke about his past. He brought old tools and strange parts wrapped in cloth. He watched her work like he was measuring time. When his name appeared in the letter, she read it twice to be sure. The hangar had belonged to him. Now it belonged to her. No one understood why. The town did not hide its opinions. Men leaned against trucks and shook their heads. Some said the place would fall apart in a year. Some said she should sell it fast and walk away. Others laughed and called it a joke left by an old man. Maria heard every word and kept walking. She had learned that noise meant nothing. Only work mattered. Inside the hangar the air was thick and still. Dust floated in the light that slipped through broken panels. Work tables lined the walls covered in cloth and rust. Shelves held books filled with notes written by hand. Every corner carried care, not neglect. This was not a ruin. It was a pause. Maria felt it in her chest and stood very still. On the far wall hung a faded photo of a young pilot. His posture was steady and his eyes looked forward. Below it sat a desk with a metal box placed neatly at the center. The box was clean, like it had been touched recently. Inside was another letter folded with care. Thomas had written slowly and clearly. Each word felt chosen. The letter spoke of trust and patience and quiet skill. It spoke of hands that fix instead of destroy. It spoke of carrying knowledge forward without asking for praise. Thomas wrote that some things wait for the right person. He believed Maria was that person. He asked her to listen to the hangar the way she listened to engines. Maria felt the weight of the words settle deep. She did not cry. She opened the first crate with careful hands. Inside were parts wrapped and labeled with dates and notes. Each one told a story of repair and hope. Some were worn, but none were broken beyond care. Maria laid them out slowly. Her movements were steady and sure. Time faded while she worked. The hangar felt alive again. Outside the laughter faded into quiet watching. The men by the fence noticed the light still burning as the sun dropped. They noticed the sound of steady work instead of chaos. They did not understand what they were seeing. Maria did not look up. She was not working to be seen. She was answering a call left behind. As night settled, the hangar held a calm warmth. Maria wiped her hands and stood in the center of the space. She did not know what the hangar would become. She only knew she would honor the trust given to her. Tomorrow the town would talk again. Tomorrow doubt would return. But tonight the hangar had a heartbeat. And Maria had a beginning. Morning light crept through the broken panels and woke the hangar slowly. Maria arrived before the sun cleared the hills, carrying tools and a small bag of food. The place felt different in daylight, as if it was watching her return. She walked the floor and listened to every sound of metal and air. Nothing felt dangerous or wrong. It felt patient. She opened doors and windows to let the dust move on. The hangar breathed again. Maria felt steady. Word spread fast through the town after that first night. Some said Maria planned to turn the hangar into a shop. Others said she was wasting her time chasing a dream. A few stopped by pretending to be curious. They asked what she was fixing and who was helping her. Maria answered politely and kept working. She did not explain plans she had not finished building. Her focus stayed on the hangar. Noise stayed outside. Hidden behind stacked crates, she found a narrow room. Inside were shelves of journals and logbooks. They were filled with careful writing and sketches. Thomas had recorded years of repairs and tests. Some pages spoke of engines, others of balance and patience. Maria read slowly, feeling the care in every word. He never rushed anything. Neither would she. The hangar felt more alive with every page. A truck arrived late in the afternoon. An older man stepped out with slow, careful steps. His name was Samuel, and he had served with Thomas years ago. He looked surprised to see Maria inside the hangar. He asked gentle questions and listened closely. When Maria spoke of the letters, his face softened. Samuel said Thomas had waited a long time to choose someone. He said the hangar was never meant to be sold. It was meant to be trusted. Samuel returned often after that. Sometimes he brought old equipment. Sometimes he just sat and watched quietly. He told stories of Thomas working through nights without complaint. He said Thomas believed skill mattered more than pride. Maria listened and learned. She began to understand the weight of what she inherited. This was not about machines alone. It was about legacy and care. The hangar was a promise kept. Work became routine but never easy. Maria repaired doors and cleared paths. She restored tables and sharpened tools. Each small task made the place stronger. Her hands ached but her mind stayed calm. She felt watched, not judged. As if Thomas expected patience, not speed. The hangar answered her care with quiet strength. Something important was forming. People outside noticed the changes. The fence was fixed and the lights stayed on longer. The laughter faded into silence and then into questions. A few younger workers stopped to ask about learning repairs. Maria welcomed them without judgment. She showed them basics and asked them to listen carefully. Some stayed and some left. Those who stayed learned respect. The hangar taught them too. One evening Maria found a sealed cabinet behind the desk. Inside rested parts covered with cloth and care. Each piece was rare and valuable. Thomas had written notes explaining their purpose. He warned that rushing would ruin everything. Maria closed the cabinet and locked it again. She was not ready yet. Some things needed time. She felt no fear, only patience. As night settled, Maria stood outside and looked back. The hangar no longer looked forgotten. It looked awake. The town was quiet and watching from a distance. Maria felt the weight of eyes but did not turn. She knew the real test had not begun yet. Tomorrow would bring harder choices. For now she stood firm. The hangar and her story were moving forward. The hangar woke before the town each morning, and Maria liked it that way. She moved through the space with quiet steps and steady breath. The walls held warmth now, and the air no longer felt heavy. Tools rested where her hands expected them to be. Work flowed without rush or strain. Each task felt guided by memory and care. The hangar no longer felt borrowed. It felt shared. Samuel arrived one morning carrying a small wooden box. He placed it on the desk without a word. Inside were medals wrapped in cloth and time. Maria did not ask questions. She understood that trust did not need many words. Samuel spoke softly about promises made long ago. He said Thomas believed some places protected truth. The hangar was one of them. Maria listened with respect. As days passed, Maria opened the sealed cabinet again. She studied the parts with careful eyes and slow hands. Each piece carried purpose and balance. Notes explained alignment and patience. Nothing was meant to impress or frighten. Everything was meant to endure. Maria realized this was never about speed. It was about doing things right. The hangar demanded honesty. News traveled beyond the town before Maria noticed. A man from the city arrived one afternoon wearing clean clothes and doubt. He offered money and plans for development. He spoke of profit and change. Maria listened and shook her head. She said the hangar was not for sale. The man laughed lightly and left. His smile faded when she did not follow. The hangar stayed quiet and firm. That evening Samuel stayed late. He told Maria about the last days Thomas spent there. He said Thomas fixed one final thing alone. No one knew what it was. He said Thomas believed the right hands would finish it. Maria felt a weight settle but not fear. She walked to the far corner and pulled back a cover. There it was waiting. Incomplete but alive. The machine stood tall and silent. Its shape was unfamiliar but careful. Notes surrounded it like a story unfinished. Maria ran her hand along the frame. She felt intention in every curve. This was not built for show. It was built for meaning. She understood now. This was the last wish. Work on the machine took time and focus. Maria worked alone through long evenings. She checked every part twice. She listened more than she moved. The hangar felt like a partner now, responding to patience and care. Mistakes were corrected, not hidden. Progress came slowly but honestly. The machine began to breathe. People outside sensed change without understanding it. The fence gathered quiet visitors. They stopped laughing and started watching. Some felt uneasy without knowing why. Others felt hope they could not name. Maria did not invite attention. She trusted the hangar to speak when ready. Until then silence was enough. Work continued. One night a storm passed over the town. Wind pressed against the hangar walls. Rain drummed on metal like a test. Maria stayed inside steady and calm. Nothing failed. Nothing bent. The hangar held strong. She smiled for the first time without effort. Trust had been rewarded. The machine stood ready for the next step. As dawn broke, Maria stepped back and rested her hands. She looked at what stood before her. It was not finished, but it was close. She felt Thomas in the quiet around her. Not as a presence but as guidance. The hangar waited. The town waited. The moment was coming. Maria was ready. The morning arrived quiet and heavy with expectation. Maria unlocked the hangar and felt the air shift around her. The machine stood where she left it, waiting without demand. Light touched its frame and revealed careful balance. She walked around it slowly, checking every joint and surface. Her hands moved with memory and trust. Nothing felt rushed or forced. This was the moment Thomas had prepared her for. She took a breath and began. Samuel arrived later than usual, carrying no tools. He stood at the door and watched without speaking. His eyes followed Maria as she worked with calm focus. When she stepped back, he nodded once. He said Thomas believed silence was proof of readiness. Maria understood what he meant. They did not celebrate or speak loudly. They simply stood together and listened. The hangar felt complete. By midday word had spread again. People gathered beyond the fence quietly. No laughter came this time. Only curiosity and unease mixed together. They watched as Maria opened the hangar doors fully. Sunlight poured in and touched the machine. It did not shine or demand attention. It stood honest and strong. The crowd did not understand yet. Maria powered the system slowly and carefully. Sound filled the hangar, smooth and controlled. The machine responded like it had been waiting. Samuel closed his eyes for a moment. He said Thomas dreamed of this sound returning. People leaned closer, unsure what they were witnessing. It was not a show. It was proof of care and patience. The hangar held the moment. A man who once laughed stepped forward. He asked what it was worth. Maria looked at him calmly. She said it was not for sale. Her voice did not shake or rise. The man had no answer ready. He stepped back into the crowd. Others followed his lead. Silence spread again. Maria explained only what was needed. She spoke of repair and trust. She spoke of work done quietly and correctly. She never mentioned money or pride. People listened because the machine stood behind her. They saw the result of patience. Some felt shame without being told. Others felt respect without understanding why. The hangar spoke for her. Samuel stepped forward and shared one last story. He spoke of Thomas choosing hands, not titles. He said Thomas believed legacy lived in care, not praise. The crowd grew still as the words settled. Maria felt no need to add anything. She stood beside the machine, steady and grounded. The laughter of the past felt distant now. No one questioned her place. The hangar had decided. As evening came, the crowd slowly left. Some nodded quietly before going. Others avoided eye contact and walked away. The fence stood empty again. Maria closed the doors and locked them with care. Inside, the hangar felt warm and calm. The machine rested without demand. Samuel smiled softly and thanked her. He said Thomas would be proud. When Maria was alone, she sat at the desk. She unfolded the first letter again. The words felt different now, deeper and heavier. She understood the last wish clearly. It was never about the machine. It was about proving patience could outlast doubt. Maria folded the letter and placed it back. Outside, the town felt quieter. Inside the hangar, a legacy stood complete. The days that followed felt quieter but heavier with meaning. Maria returned each morning with the same steady pace. The hangar no longer surprised her, but it still taught her. She cleaned and checked every corner with care. Nothing felt finished, even though the machine stood complete. Work was no longer about proving anything. It was about keeping a promise alive. The hangar held that promise gently. People began to approach her differently. They spoke slower and listened more. Some asked questions without hidden laughter. Others asked if they could learn and help. Maria welcomed those who showed patience. She taught them to listen before touching tools. Mistakes were corrected without anger. Respect grew naturally in the space. The hangar changed people quietly. Samuel continued to visit, but less often. He said his part was nearly done. One afternoon he handed Maria a small notebook. Inside were final notes written by Thomas. They spoke of endings that are also beginnings. He wrote that trust once given must be protected. Maria read the words slowly. She felt calm and certain. The notebook found its place on the desk. The circle felt complete. The machine was never moved or sold. It remained in the hangar as proof, not product. People traveled from far places to see it. They expected noise and show. They found silence and balance instead. Some left confused. Others left changed. Maria never explained more than needed. The hangar continued to speak on its own. Young workers who stayed began to grow. They learned patience and care before speed. Maria watched them with quiet pride. She remembered being doubted and unseen. Now she chose to be seen only through work. The hangar became a place of learning. Not loud or famous. Just steady and honest. That was enough. One evening Maria stood alone as the sun fell. Light moved across the floor like memory. She thought of Thomas without sadness. His wish had been fulfilled without words. Doubt had faded without confrontation. Respect had grown without demand. She felt no need to look back. The past had done its work. The future waited calmly. The town changed in small ways. People fixed instead of replaced. They listened more and spoke less. Pride softened into understanding. The hangar became a quiet center. not of attention but of trust. Maria noticed these changes slowly. She smiled rarely but sincerely. This was the real inheritance. On the anniversary of the letter, Maria opened the doors early. She stood in the doorway and watched the morning arrive. No crowd gathered and none were needed. The hangar stood strong and steady. The machine rested like a heart at peace. Maria felt grounded and complete. She had not been silenced. She had been proven. The laughter was gone for good. As the day moved forward, Maria returned to work. There was always something to repair or teach. She no longer felt alone in the space. The hangar carried many hands now, each one learning care over noise. Thomas' last wish lived on quietly, not in stories told loudly, but in work done right. And that was everything.